What's up, guys? Another week of site visit. We're gonna start here in the shop, see what the guys are working on out in the shop. If you guys caught last week's revealed, you saw that gray cabinet go together. I know they're working on a couple other things for that project, as well as our Beacon Hill project, which is gonna be our first stop today. And you'll see that dresser that we installed with that, if you guys remember, that bifold door that when closed, it should look like drawers. So let's head out in the shop and see what they're working on. In that Beacon Hill project, we actually added a window bench, and that window bench is going to be built on site with the trim carpenters, but we decided to actually do it here in the shop, and that's what is going on right here. So the guys have fabricated this entire thing, standard walnut drawer boxes. One thing that we actually decided to do is that this is a bay window. So when we're on site, I'll show you where this is going to go, but it's a bay window, so you have these two angled walls, and we actually built the cabinet so it's basically shallower on this side and deeper on the other side, so it maximizes the cubic inches that we're using. We're actually going to build our drawers the same way, where our drawers will have a longer, basically a shallow side and a long side, and what we'll do is we'll use, let me give you an example. If this is 18 inches deep and this is 24 inches deep, we'll actually use an 18-inch bloom drawer slide and a 24-inch bloom drawer slide to allow that drawer to get all of that space back there. And when you pull it out, the 24-inch side won't get that full extension, but the 18-inch side will. We're maximizing inches here, so any inches that we can get for storage will be great. So this is ready to go out to the finisher. The top is over there, solid MDF top. This will go out, get finished, and then we'll bring this on site, carry it up the stairs, and get this installed. This is actually for our South Boston project. We're not going to be able to hit that one today because they're actually going to be insulating. That's a renovation that we are using spray foam on, something that we tend to avoid, but in this scenario it makes the most sense for what we're trying to do. So we're not going to be able to hit that job site today, but there are some great updates. So hopefully next week we can get over there, check out the skylights, that door. You guys had asked what we're going to be doing for natural light in this space, and we're finally seeing that come to fruition. Plus those stairs are now the main access up to that third floor, which is a huge difference. But this right here is the start of a coffee bar. James is actually working on the doors for it. This will be a lower section with a bar sink and then a door that bifolds to the left, so you can make coffee in the morning without going 2 flights down to the kitchen, right upstairs in the bedroom. I know if I was making coffee in my bedroom, it would drive my wife crazy because we wake up at very different hours, but apparently they do not. Last week on Revealed, Ken walked you through this. If you guys missed it, make sure you go check it out. But this is for our Cambridge project, and this is a dyed veneer from Taboo, and the doors are now off it. But there's a really cool detail on that end cabinet there that, like I said, if you haven't seen the video, you should definitely go back and look at it. And I think Ken's talked about these, but I love the fact that they're using these really narrow plates rather than we used to use the wing plates. We've been using these, so when the hinge clips on, it actually covers all of it. And I was wrong in the previous video. I had said that these don't get as much of adjustment as the wing plates, but they do. I think the difference is the wing plates have, I think, a slightly heavier weight capacity. But we've had no issues, and these look great. And then Ian down here is actually working on coping and sticking some parts on our shaper. So getting that done, he's using the crosscut sled. He's pulling it off right now, probably switching that bit out, and then start running the grooves for the panels. So quick little update here. Like I said, we're going to stop in Beacon Hill first. So why don't we hop in the truck? We'll head over there. They're wrapping up interior trim. I'll show you guys that dresser that we installed, or that James installed. And then we're going to head over to our Back Bay project, Project 142, where plaster is continuing, cabinets continuing. So let's go. We're in Beacon Hill. We're going to touch base on a couple things. I'm going to show you the window bench that we showed you in the shop. We're also going to talk about that built-in dresser. First things first, I wanted to kind of pop in here in the bathroom. So if you guys remember way back, this bathroom was a full gut. It's kind of a funky structure in this building with clay, basically terracotta tile subfloor system with concrete on top of it. Long story short, there was a lot of issues with the flatness of the floor, levelness of the floor, heights, plumbing heights, things of that nature. So this floor is actually not super level, what we've done is actually made it as flat as possible and making sure that everything pitches back to our linear drain here at the shower. And I'll show you how that works in the shower in a moment. We have the wall hung toilet here, which that height is dictated by the carrier that we put in the wall. And then we have the vanity over here. And this was a spot that we couldn't get the floor down any lower than it already is. So we actually have a ledger on this wall here. This is where our vanity will sit. And Doug, if you turn around, you actually see there's brass legs on that vanity. It kicks up off the ground. The guys actually have to take that, and we're gonna have to scribe that brass. I'm sharing that knowing that you'll never actually see it, but we're gonna go through the trouble of scribing that brass to the floor because that floor kicks up. Like I said, it wasn't an area that we could actually get lower, and we had to make sure that everything else worked. So we could leave, while we could leave it, it's just not the right way to go about it. So they pulled it back out. We're gonna scribe that brass and then put that back in. A couple things to note on the vanity. Obviously we have a double sink with our double water lines and drain lines. We have some outlets within the space. We've been putting our Schluter thermostats in the vanity, and we previously were putting them above the light switch, and we've decided to go, to put them in the vanity because these are really a set it and forget it type thermostat. It's not reading air temperature. There's 2 thermostat wires in the floor. One is reading the temperature. The second one is if that temperature wire ever breaks or is faulty, we have a backup. So it's reading the floor temperature. Thus, you set it inside the vanity, you forget it. If you want to make adjustments, you can download the app and do so just like another thermostat or Wi-Fi thermostat might be controlled. So that's why we've been burying them there. Keeps it cleaner on the outside. To the shower, couple things. As you see, all of our channel is buried into our plaster wall. It's buried into the floor here. And then over here, last time we were here, Cooper was actually ripping out this tile because these tile were just too shy. We had to reset those to bring it out to make sure that this glass was nice and planar with our edge of tile. You can see how that hinge bracket works. It works out really nice. Everything lines up and creates this nice glass corner. While it takes up a lot of the space, it doesn't feel super heavy with, say a wall here. It leaves it really nice and open. I'm gonna be out of here in 1 second, Coop, promise. Stepping in here, there's a couple things. Obviously, we have our baseboard back there, but the way that this hinge, the way that hinge pivots, you can actually see it never hits that baseboard, but when it closes almost right in front of it, and Coop's actually returned that, right against the wall there. So that works out really nice. And then our linear drain is right at the door because couldn't get it back here. Same thing, plumbing was kind of funky. We couldn't get our elevation to work, and plus we would have needed to build this floor up to pitch it that way. Instead, we decided to build up in this direction. We have a bench here, shower head here, little wall niche here, and then all the water will flow and then hit this linear drain. And we like to use these tile drains because it creates a slot, so as water is going down, you have this continuous slot all the way around. Water's going to hit that and fall in prior to going out, and if it does shoot across, if it does shoot across the drain, it's going to catch that second one, but when this door is shut, you get a nice hard gasket on the side here, and then you have a gasket on the bottom that anything runs down, it's going to hit that drain and go into that slot. So this actually works out really nice and creates that nice curbless entry. I'll let Coop get back in here. Do you even like being called Coop? I call you Coop all the time.
Coop's great.
Coop's great?
Coop's fine.
Fantastic. Doug, this is gonna be hard to get a shot. We obviously got trash day coming up here, but this is the built-in dresser that we built in the shop, and drawers on this side, nice deep full extension walnut drawers. The thought here was, it started as a built-in, and I really didn't want this to feel as though it was this slammed in wall-to-wall cabinet. It just didn't really make sense, and I wanted it to appear to be a dresser. But I knew that if you had a dresser that was off the wall, if stuff ever fell down the side, it'd be a pain in the butt to get out of there. So you can see what the guys did is they've actually created this return. It's about 6 inches back, and then you have a filler. So if anything falls down, you're able to capture it. But when you're stepped back, you get this nice shadow line. The countertop's kept back from the corner just a slight bit, and it looks as though it's a piece of furniture. We'll put hardware on this one, and then this side right here, you actually have your continuous drawer reveals all the way through. But looking close, you get the seam here. Well, this is, let me move this, a bifold door. And the nice thing is this moves out of the way, and then this is additional hanging storage. They were trying to get additional hanging storage within this space, and we were able to accomplish that by doing this. Again, not using a full width door. It would be way out here and into the room, probably hitting the bed. And we didn't want to do double doors because we wanted to be able to kind of push it out of the way and then access what you needed, and then you can drop it closed. And then stepping back, it looks like a dresser with a bank of 8 drawers. And then on top here, we actually are putting in a nice, really nice custom brass and glass shelving system that we've ordered, and that will go in, and that will be for, you know, additional storage and trinkets and things like that, but really dress up this space of the room. That window bench, this is where we were talking about in the shop, is this right here. Originally it was going to be built on site with just a lift up top, and we decided to go, decided to build that in the shop as a piece of millwork with those deep drawers. And you can see what I was talking about. You have this really deep center section and then these angled walls, and we're taking account for those angles so we can get an extra deep shelf. So even here, this may be like just under 8, like I said, closer to 18-inch drawer. You'd be able to fit almost a 30-inch drawer here. So having that back angle, though you can't pull it all the way out on the very longest point, gives you a ton of, or it gives you the extra cubic inches for storage, which will be great. The front will be paneled. I believe we're not going to do hardware on it, so it just looks like a paneled front. And we'll do a touch open, so when you push them, they'll open up, and you'll be able to keep extra blankets and things like that. We're still waiting on our windows to come back from our restoration contractor. I know they've been dealing with some COVID issues with from scheduling and manpower, but once those are in, these guys will be able to wrap up all the window extension jambs and things of that nature. Tim's working on some crown mold in here. It looks like most of the crown is installed. I believe, are you cutting the one above me? He's cutting the one above me here. So we talked about this beam section here. We actually, Mike had the plasters come out back and actually lower this section, so when the crown runs by, you can actually see it's a nice reveal there, and it looks really intentional. And did that over plaster rather than, I think a previous episode I talked about building it out of wood. It just made sense to do that. Kitchen's still wrapped up, but you can see we actually got our backsplash installed. They went with a more traditional white subway. We still got a couple things to wrap up here. We got our light track to install. You can see underneath our light rail. Let me open this up. See, it's an applied panel, and if you look underneath, this slot here is actually designed for this, which is our light channel. So it's an aluminum extrusion and then a plastic diffuser. A lot of you guys asked where we get this. We order this stuff from Richelieu. The nice part about this one is there's no flange on it. So once it's up and installed, it sits completely flush with the bottom here, and then that extrusion actually sits in. Let me see if I can clip that back in. So you can see that diffuser completely flush. So when that's installed, it actually won't hang down any further than the painted section and look really nice. And the reason we do this, the diffuser takes the LED tape light and diffuses the light rather than getting all these hot spots. If any of you guys have installed the tape light without a diffuser, you know that on the countertop you get this reflection of all the little LED hot spots. This helps combat that, so you have a nice consistent light line of lighting. And then the back here, we've actually avoided putting outlets in the backsplash, and we've put a plug mold up back here. You see the 12-2 wiring coming out. Really nice detail. The thing with that is you have to be aware that if you're the type of person that has appliances that sit on the countertop, like a toaster that sits on the countertop all the time, that cable is going to be up and plugged in all the time. So hanging down doesn't look that great. So it's really great for if you don't have a lot of appliances on the countertop. You're living there, aesthetically it looks good. Otherwise, we would, recommend putting the outlets in the backsplash. So when that toaster might be plugged in, the cable's tucked behind it. We're working through the remaining trim here, and then we're gonna get into, the painting's gonna get in here. They're gonna paint all the trim, get this place ready, ceiling's done. Speaking of ceilings, I wanna talk about this. You can't really see it, but what we did is we actually had our plaster come back and feather any high spots in the ceiling. We actually had this high spot here where the crown came over level, but we were actually about a 1/4 inch higher with the ceiling. And rather than filling that, we had the plaster come in and screed that back out with the ceiling, so we didn't have these huge discrepancies. And then if you pan around, you can see all of our reveals to our ceiling to crown are tight, and what I would consider caulkable. So you're talking less than a 1/16 of an inch, which is nice. It's just a much better detail, and it gives us the opportunity to make these corrections prior to paint. We're gonna get all the trim painted, and then a lot of this place gets wallpapered. So once the trim is painted, doors are painted, our wallpaper contractor will come in, and she's gonna get this place wallpapered and make a huge transformation. And we'll start pulling up this floor protection, getting our floors wrapped up, and we'll be able to deliver this place. Guys, we're over in the back bay at our project 142. I actually just wanted to show you something. Doug, come over here. So we were just talking over in Beacon Hill about our thermostats being in the vanity. This project has radiant, so we've actually tucked these thermostats in the closet. So when these closets are shut, you're not actually seeing these thermostats. Same thing with radiant floors, just like the radiant electric radiant with the Schluter product. It's kind of a set it and forget it type thing. You basically set that, you work off air temperature, floor temperature, outside temperature, and that system will automatically run itself. So same thing here, we're tucking that into the closet. Basically, the big progress here is the kitchen, and I had mentioned it in our previous episode, is that we did not fabricate this kitchen. This is one of the last projects that we'll ever do that we don't fabricate a kitchen. We started this project and they had actually already had this cabinetry. So this is by a German manufacturer, Pogenpo, and they've been out doing the install. White appliances, everything is servo driven. So you just push on it and that drawer automatically opens up. You can actually see the arm here. By the way, these are all servo driven, so you can just touch them and they'll automatically open up. Great feedback, saying that, hey, maybe the kids are gonna come in here and bug you and push these, or you're maybe working against it, and if you lean on it and of course it doesn't do it. You lean on it and it pushes out. So maybe at some point we can put a switch on that and shut that option off if that ever becomes a nuisance. Looking in the future, we're going to be doing a stone countertop with waterfall, stone countertop with a stone backsplash, and you can see that on the backsplash there, the outlets are all prepped with a true fig. So we'll actually do a flush true fig, just like the plaster over here. These will be in the stone, and we'll have our faux painter come in and paint them to match the stone. So they're completely blended into that stone backsplash. Unlike how we did over in Beacon Hill, where we had the under cabinet, the plug mold, these are on the backsplash. We'll do the same thing in the waterfall drop on this end. The range hood, so stainless, we got a collar going up there. Something that we've been talking about is leaving that collar down from the ceiling and creating a shadow line. We have a lot of shadow lines. We have the flush base going throughout the entire space here. So we're thinking that maybe rather than this being slammed up tight against the ceiling, that might be a good detail. I'm talking about this stuff just, I love getting your feedback and seeing what you guys think, but there's always, room to improve these things, and we make sure we talk to our client about it. And I actually just noticed this, and we were talking about it a couple minutes ago, but these panels here for the island actually come down and land on top of a piece of 1/4 inch stainless. And that 1/4 inch gives you that little shadow gap at the bottom. So what I'm thinking that we're gonna do is, I wanna get some additional stainless material or aluminum material, whatever that might be, and actually do it underneath the stone. So when that waterfall comes down and hits the floor, rather than scribing that stone to the floor, we have this really, again, intentional separation, shadow gap, and then you have this piece of stainless or aluminum that keeps everything up off the floor. What I think we do with that, and the reason I want to go about that, is this is going to be a heavy looking piece of stone, 2 inches thick. And if you can keep it up off the floor and create this separation, it almost creates this light and airy feel to it, rather than a really solid, heavy material kind of planting itself on the ground. At least that's the psychology that I look at when we talk about something like that. We've already talked about this staircase. I just kind of wanted to highlight it again as the plaster continues here. We've already talked about these transitions. We're getting this basically wrapped up. You can see that this side is still blue board. We'll get this plastered soon. Ian here is saving the day. We missed an outlet on the wall, so he's getting that cut in, ready to be plastered. Stuff happens on the job site. We got to make sure we're good. Laundry room. So this will be a big double door. We'll open it up. They're getting prepped for plaster in here. Before they plaster the walls with a traditional painted plaster like this, they're gonna waterproof the floor, and we're actually gonna do a waterproof plaster on the floor, and we'll pan that up. So if these machines were to ever leak, or God forbid that were to leak, we have a floor drain in the back right corner. Everything would go to that floor drain and prevent any issue from spilling out. We'll also build a curb behind that door, so when the doors are shut, you don't see it, but when you're open, it'll be small enough where you can step on it and not trip over it, but it'll be large enough to contain the water. And beyond that, we'll actually do a water bug sensor in here. So once it detects water, it kills the water and make sure that we're not gonna flood this place, especially being on the very top floor of not only just this unit, but a multi-family building. We also have some millwork in the shop. We've talked about that in previous episodes. But when you look at this, we have a stackable machine here. We have some adjustable shelves here. We actually have a full height cabinet that's gonna encapsulate this Navien unit right in line with this soffit. So it's gonna look like a cabinet with a small countertop. And when you open that cabinet, it's going to have shallow shelves, so you can keep fabric softener sheets or small detergents and things like that. And if you have to service this, that back panel of the cabinet will tilt out and you'll be able to service that entirely. And all of that plumbing below will be encapsulated in the full height cabinet that will go there. Again, thermostats for the radiant on this level are in this closet. Again, you don't need to see these. It's a set it and forget it type thing. We'll set those, make sure it's comfortable, and they'll be in here if they ever do have to be adjusted. But the reality is you don't. I always love seeing this Accurite sensors, making sure the temperature and humidity in the place is within reason, especially going through all this plaster work. Great shot of how well this plaster is coming together. The tray ceiling, the walkable skylight, the soffit with the HVAC details, this return air into our mechanical space that is above the entry. I'm looking at this and frankly, I wish we could leave the raw plaster. The cloudy, natural look of it looks really incredible, and this is going to be painted a really true white, but it's really beautiful looking, and you can really see the labor that went into this to make these details really shine. Same thing here, this glass being buried into the wall. They went as far as making sure that stop bead was all painted black, so when you were looking at it, you're not seeing a shiny stop bead. Everything is really, really well thought out. You can actually see, I think last time we talked about these, they were blending in, and he did the same thing. This stop bead, it's a little dirty, but the stop bead was all painted black before this went up and plastered. And this actually works around the future cap for this tread. But when you're looking up there, and if I look this way, that stop bead is always painted black, giving you the ability to really see this clean line between glass and plaster. And using a stop bead is, helps, because otherwise, oftentimes what you would see is this plaster stop, and then the painter comes in here and puts a bead of caulking, and it's never as straight as a nice straight metal edge. Guys, I know I talk a lot about the plaster here. It's a really big deal for us in this project. There's just so many areas in this project that capture a lot of light, and the level of expectation and the flatness and the simplicity. I mean, it's very simple in the way it looks, but as you can see, we've been here on this project for 2 years, and you can tell just there's an enormous amount of effort going into a lot of these things, and we're getting so close to the end. To see all this stuff come together gets me excited. So I'm eager to share it with you guys. What we're looking at now is wrapping up millwork. Plaster is wrapping up. We're going into waterproof plaster in the bathrooms, which we'll feature in a future episode. And then once we get beyond that, we're going into paint. We're pulling all the protection. We sand and coat the floors, and we're going to turn this over to the homeowners. So until next week, guys, appreciate you guys following along on Site Visit. Make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, and then stay tuned for tomorrow for another episode of Revealed, and then Thursday for another episode of the NS Builders Podcast. We appreciate you sticking around. We'll see you then. I feel like I should start announcing who I'm wearing, too.
Who you're wearing?
Yeah, what I'm wearing, who I'm wearing, with all the questions as to what I wear every single time I post a video.
Okay.
What you got on today, man?
I got PacSun jeans.
Not bad.
That's what my wife said. She goes, PacSun? I'm like, I don't know. I just
What's up?
bought them.
I like them.
Yes.
They're comfortable. All right, you ready?